What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here. We talked about this a couple weeks ago on the weekly sports card market update, but the heat just keeps on building on one Mr. Prime Time. That's right. Deion Sanders. We didn't flash back to 1997. Deion Sanders is quite possibly one of the hottest players in the sports card world today. And it has nothing to do with him actually playing. It has to do with him coaching. And it is a perfect example of how buzz and hype and excitement is quite honestly the most important thing in regards to sports card prices going up and down in some cases. This kind of leans back into the Trout conversation versus Griffey that we had last week, where, you know, Trout has the numbers. You can't deny it. He puts up or put up huge numbers over the course of his career so far and could potentially put up even more. He will probably end up with better statistics than Griffey in some cases. He already has more WAR if you're in the Team WAR crowd. But Griffey captured the excitement and buzz of a generation. If you grew up in the 90s, Griffey was your guy. Whether you loved him, hated him, whatever, he was bigger than life. And it just kind of goes back to show you that the numbers on the field play is not the most important thing. And this Deion Sanders thing, though different, kind of leans into that same thing. The buzz and hype around his Colorado team is absolutely wild. I found myself trying to stay up ultra late on a Saturday night, hashtag East Coast and old. Didn't make it. But I found myself trying to stay up super late on a Saturday night to watch a Colorado versus Colorado State game. His post-game press conferences are must-view television. He has captured the sports world, and I'm just talking outside of cards. Everyone is tuning in to watch Coach Prime and his quarterback as well. His son is very, very good, or seems good anyway. But all this buzz and hype has driven his sports card market absolutely crazy. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a situation like this where a player saw this much movement after they retired that didn't involve a Hall of Fame announcement, which, you know, we don't got to worry about that here, or death, as sad as it sounds. Like, typically, those are the two things post-career that will really cause your prices to spike up. Is getting in the Hall of Fame, even though everyone knows that it's usually coming anyways, it still usually gives a little bounce in prices. And then if the player passes away, they usually get a bounce up in prices. This is the first time, at least in recent memory, and if someone can think of something similar to this, please feel free, fire it away in the comments down below. I might just be forgetting something obvious, that a player's off the it's weird because it's off the field, but it's on the field because he's coaching. But something outside of those two things is really causing demand in his cards to go up. To me, the only one that comes kind of close would be like Shaq. Shaq has a ton of popularity based off of, and Barkley to a lesser degree. Those two guys have a lot of popularity based off their broadcasting career. But it's a little bit different. It's just more that they're still in the front of your mind. This is, you know, week to week, because his team goes out and plays, is driving more and more demand for his cards. We'll run through some of them here in a minute. But in my opinion, we're kind of in uncharted waters here. Now, listen, I don't know college football super well. I loosely follow Ohio State. I'll throw on a game on Saturday. If there's a big game on, I will put it on in the background, but I am not locked in to college football. So I don't know how good or bad the prospects of Colorado football continuing on are going to be. You know, do they actually have legs to do some damage or not? I know that they've kind of come out of the radar or off the radar here to kind of, you know, sweep the nation, if you will. I don't know what the rest of their schedule looks like, their conference, etc. Once again, someone can educate me in the comments down below. Feel free. So I don't know how long the legs on this are. You know, if they lose, does it immediately take the shine off? Is this because they are undefeated and just playing crazy football games? Is that partially what's driving this? You know, if they lose, does it drop his value, or do people stop caring, stop paying attention? We all know they're probably going to come back down in value again. That's just the way that this stuff typically works. It spikes up, and then, you know, people can only stay focused on something for so long, and they move on to the next shiny object. So if you had tons of money invested into Deion Sanders, especially some of this higher population stuff, might not be a bad idea to take your profits. As we have said around here for years now, there is no law stating that you cannot buy these cards back later. Contrary to popular belief, you are allowed to buy a card, sell it later for a profit, and then if you decide you want to own it again, you can actually go back out and buy. There is the SWAT team's not going to kick the door in. The ATF's not going to come after you. The CIA, FBI, whatever, insert 3-letter agency here, is not going to come after you for buying a card back that you sold previously. You were 100% allowed to do that. I really think people forget about that sometimes. So when we go over these first couple cards, they are pretty high population in PSA 10. They are not that hard to find. Those are the ones that worry me most. Now, if you got something super crazy, super rare, a little bit of a different story. But if you've been collecting Deion Sanders for a long time, might not be a bad idea to move off a few of these and then circle back in a year, 6 months, maybe even a month, who knows, and pick them back up again. But we are kind of in uncharted waters here for the most part. So let's run through just a couple of these. His 89 Pro set. I remember the Barry Sanders of this card being a big chase back in the day. I think I have 3 of them raw laying around somewhere that I bought as a kid, and I thought I was king of the mountain with my 89 Barry Sanders Pro set. So college uniform, obviously. PSA 10 population on this one, 1,100. I also would not be surprised if we suddenly see a spike in PSA submissions for him. It's usually what happens. Even though this is older wax, people will find a way. People will start digging stuff out and submitting more of the cards in. So I wouldn't be surprised if these PSA populations creep up. People are going to go looking for SGC 9.5s, 10s, BGSs, whatever, cracking them, sending them over to PSA to maximize the value. So PSA 10 Pro set currently sits at $143. I went 90-day charts here because for the most part, his pricing is flat, just to kind of show the dramatic increase. $46 3 months ago, now up to $143. That's a $100 increase. That's 208%. 41 of those have sold over the last 90 days. This is a classic example of probably not a bad one to let go. If you got a couple of them laying around, you will probably be able to buy this card back cheaper at some point later. They go undefeated and win the national championship. Sorry I steered you wrong on that one, but more often than not, you're better off selling on the upswing than trying to time the market perfectly. Next up, the 89 Topps Traded. I actually like this one the best. I just really like the image on this one. I was always a sucker for the red Falcons helmet back in the day. When I would play Madden, and me and my friends would like to do custom drafts and play franchises, I would pick the Falcons a lot because I always liked their uniform selection. I liked the old school red helmets, the way that they looked, and the all black and stuff. They just had a nice uniform kit across their different decades that you could choose from on various years of Madden. So this one always had a soft spot for me. This is by far and away his most common card. This one has also gone up the least amount. There are over 3,000 of these in PSA 10s. 90 days ago, there was one super high sale here at $100. Generally speaking, this was about a $70 card, give or take, with a few outliers here. Now it is up to $130. So it's almost doubled based off of where it typically sold. Not quite. This is another one. If you have these laying around and they have doubled in value, maybe not a bad idea to move off of it. But like I said, from a sentimental value standpoint, I always really like the image on this one. Next up, something a little bit higher end. This is his 89 score. PSA 10, 89 score, very classic set. A lot of nice cards out of that set. PSA 10 is now doing a little over $1,000. That was on the 16th. I wouldn't be surprised if the next one sold higher. This card is up a lot. Lower in the pop report, 902 on this one. Was $585 90 days ago. So let's just call it 600. Keep the math simple. Now sitting at 1,100. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if the next one that went off the board wouldn't be closer to 1,200. But as of right now, 90% increase on this one. If you could double your money on a sports card, it'll be pretty tough to hold it and see what happens. That's just me. You do you. But this card has escalated rather quickly in value. Last but not least, this isn't a chart and a graph. And by the way, if you want your own versions of charts and graphs, check out Market Movers, link in the description down below. This was a fun one that went off the board. This sold for a little over $1,000. I don't know what previous ones went for on this card. These don't pop up a ton. I just thought this was a cool one to point out. This is a PSA 10-10. So this is the 89 tops traded, graded in a PSA 10 with a PSA 10 on-card auto that someone probably got done in person or at a private signing or whatever. So this one is pretty rare. I know this is something that Jeff Wilson's talked about in the past and some others in regards to Hall of Famer on-card autos on cheaper rookie cards or more affordable rookie cards. But if you can nail the 10-10, it kind of really sets it apart. And you see it here. This card by itself sells for about 130 bucks. Now you get the 10-10 auto on there and it adds almost $1,000 in value to it. This one, I looked, it's $1,200 crossed out. It sold just for over $1,000 bucks. So it added $900 in value having the auto on there along with the PSA 10 grade. Tough to pull off for sure because you have the player handling the card, you know, all that stuff, and then the whims of PSA. But just thought that was a cool one to point out. An interesting way to kind of boost value on some of these junk wax rookie cards that are plentiful but are popular. I've seen this a lot with like the Bo Jackson one. The Bo Jackson from the top set. I'm blanking on the year at the moment. But you'll see that baseball one autographed quite a bit. And in a PSA 10-10, it actually sells very strongly. It's a pretty expensive card. So curious for your thoughts and comments down below, but we are in a weird spot when in 2023, Deion Sanders is the most, I shouldn't say the most, but extremely popular in the sports card world at the moment and just the sports world in general. It is all everyone is talking about. And like I said, it does go to show you that that hype machine matters more than just compiling numbers. That's all I got for you boys and girls. Peace.